Your mind is your greatest weapon, or your greatest trap. Every day, it's either training you or tricking you. You think you're making choices, but most of the time, your emotions are. And that's why you stay stuck, reactive, distracted, exhausted. This audiobook isn't motivation. It's training. Because until you learn to master your mind, it will master you, and it will destroy everything you're trying to build. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop letting feelings run your life. Most people don't think. They react. They wake up already caught in an emotional loop, ruled by anxiety, fear, anger, comparison, and impulse. They check their phone. They see what someone else is doing. They feel behind. They feel less than. And just like that, their entire day is dictated by emotion, not direction. That's the trap of the modern mind. We confuse feeling something with doing something about it. We confuse emotional truth with actual truth. But here's the reality. Your emotions don't owe you accuracy. They owe you survival. Your brain isn't built to make you happy. It's built to keep you safe. And that means it will exaggerate, distort, and dramatize, constantly. Fear becomes louder than logic. Anger feels like power. And sadness feels like identity. But emotions are signals, not commands. You can feel something without obeying it. That's the difference between a reactive life and a disciplined life. You have a choice. Every time emotion rises, you have a choice. You can let it drive, or you can take the wheel. The emotion loop. Let's break it down. You get triggered. Something happens. Someone criticizes you. A plan fails, a message doesn't come. Instantly, emotion fires. Your body tenses. Your mind spins a story. You react. You say something you regret. You spiral. Then comes guilt, regret, shame. Now you're emotional about your own emotional reaction. That's the loop. Emotion creates reaction. Reaction creates more emotion. And the loop repeats until you stop it. Consciously. Most people never do. They live entire lives in emotional autopilot. They react, justify it, and repeat. They confuse motion with progress. Noise with control. But here's the truth. A strong mind doesn't eliminate emotion. It directs it. Emotion is energy, but energy without control is chaos. You don't need to kill your feelings. You need to command them. You need to understand, emotions aren't enemies. They're messengers. They're giving you data. Anger shows you what you value. Fear shows you where you lack preparation. Jealousy shows you what you desire. But only if you stop long enough to listen instead of react. Only if you choose awareness over impulse. You are not your feelings. You are the one who decide. What they mean. That's the key. The pause principle. Here's where mastery begins. Learn to pause. When emotion hits, don't react, observe. Don't run from it. Don't drown in it. Just pause. This single habit can change your life. Because in that pause, something powerful happens. You reclaim control. You give logic a chance to speak. You give your higher self time to lead. Think of the last argument you had. You said something out of anger, not because it was true, but because it was fast. And later, when calm returned, regret followed. Because in that moment, emotion was driving the car, and logic was tied up in the trunk. The pause unties logic. It lets you ask, what's really happening here? What's the truth behind what I'm feeling? Maybe it's not that they disrespected you. Maybe you felt unseen. Maybe it's not that you're lazy. Maybe you're afraid of failing. When you pause, you see through the fog. Here's the truth. Silence equals strength. Pause equals power. Every time you pause before reacting, you train your mind to obey you, not your mood. You have a choice. You always have a choice. You can let emotion dictate your behavior, or you can dictate the meaning of your emotion. T's where mental freedom begins. Real-world control. Let's make this real. When someone cuts you off in traffic, pause. Don't rage. Don't prove a point. You're not fighting for honor, you're fighting for control. When you fail, pause. Don't spiral into self-criticism. Analyze. Adjust. Move forward. When you get rejected, pause. Don't chase validation. Don't collapse into doubt. Rejection is redirection. Always. That's the discipline. Feeling everything, reacting to nothing. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about not letting it define your identity. The disciplined mind doesn't say, "I'm angry." It says, "Anger is present. What's the lesson here?" That's power. You are not your feelings. You are the one who decides what they mean. Say that again to yourself, out loud if you have to. You are not your feelings. You are the on. Who decides what they mean. That's the mantra of mastery. The strong versus the reactive. Weak minds collapse under emotion. Strong minds channel it. A reactive person says, "That's just how I am." A trained person says, "That's what I feel, but here's how I choose to act." The reactive mind is addicted to instant relief. It wants to express, to release, to escape. The trained mind is addicted to control. It seeks understanding, not reaction. It responds, not explodes. You don't need their permission to feel calm. You don't need the world to stop being chaotic. You just need to stop letting chaos enter your mind. That's the discipline. That's the training. And the truth is, no one can do it for you. You can read, listen, study, but until you apply the pause, until you control the reaction, you'll stay stuck. Control isn't learned through knowledge. It's learned through repetition, through practice, through choosing calm again and again until it becomes who you are. Because mastery isn't a single moment of peace, it's a lifestyle of self-command. Mental training exercise. Here's your mental exercise for today. When emotion rises, don't run from it, and don't obey it. Just name it. I feel anger. I feel fear. I feel envy. By naming it, you separate identity from emotion. By labeling it, you weaken its control. You become the observer, not the prisoner. Do this in real life. When the pressure builds, when stress hits, when temptation appears, pause. Name it. Breathe. Choose. Every repetition is a rep for your mind. Every pause is a push-up for your discipline. That's how mental strength is built. You don't need to eliminate emotion. You just need to teach it who's in charge. And every time you do, every time you pause instead of react, you are rewiring your brain for mastery. That's the work. That's the path. Conclusion. You are not emotionless. You are emotionally trained. You feel everything, but you're controlled by nothing. That's what it means to master your mind before it masters you. And it begins with this single choice. Pause before you react. Think before you speak. Choose before you act. That's how you take your power back, from your impulses, your fears, your habits. Because the moment you can feel deeply but act wisely, you've already won the battle most people never even fight. Remember, you are not your feelings. You are the one who decides what they mean. You've learned how to break the emotion loop. You've learned how to pause before reacting. You've taken your first step into real control. Now, let's go deeper. You've mastered your reactions. Now it's time to master your foundation. Your discipline. Chapter 2. Discipline is freedom, not punishment. People hate the word discipline. They think it means pain, restriction, boredom. They think it means saying no to pleasure, no to comfort, no to life. They're wrong. Discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is power. It's self-respect in motion. It's the structure that sets you free. You see, the undisciplined chase freedom, but live in chaos. The disciplined build structure and live in peace. That's the paradox of power. The more control you have, the freer you become. Most people live like leaves in the wind. They go wherever the feeling blows them. If it feels good, they do it. If it feels hard, they quit. If it feels boring, they scroll. That's not freedom. That's slavery disguised as comfort. The truth is simple. Without discipline, your feelings own you. Without discipline, your environment owns you. Without discipline, your excuses run your life. You have a choice. You can keep living reactive, chasing what's easy, avoiding what's hard, or you can take control and build yourself. That's the key. It's not about punishment. It's about purpose. It's not about restriction. It's about respect. You don't need more motivation. You need more control. Redefining discipline. Let's redefine what discipline actually is. Discipline is saying, I will, when your feelings say, I don't want to. It's doing the reps when no one's watching. It's sticking to the plan when everyone else is quitting. Look at an athlete. They wake up before dawn. They eat the same meals. They train even when their body hurts. That's not punishment, that's identity. They know who they are. They know what they're building. They're not driven by comfort, they're driven by commitment. A soldier doesn't complain about routine. An entrepreneur doesn't whine about repetition. They understand the truth. Discipline is the foundation of mastery. You can't become exceptional on the schedule of your emotions. You rise on the schedule of your standards. Most people are addicted to motivation. They want to feel ready before they act. But feelings are unreliable. Motivation fades. Discipline endures. You don't need to feel like doing it. You just need to do it anyway. That's the muscle you're training, the ability to act without emotion. Every time you show up when it's hard, you build freedom. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build strength. That's the process of liberation, through structure. You don't need more motivation. You need more control. Say it again. You don't need more motivation. You need more control. Freedom through rules. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. Freedom comes from knowing exactly what you must do, and doing it. The undisciplined mind lives in chaos. It's constantly reacting, constantly scattered, constantly anxious. It doesn't trust itself. But the disciplined mind, it's calm. It doesn't waste energy deciding what matters. It already knows. It already has rules. It already has order. Rules don't restrict you, they protect you. They keep your life aligned with your values. They guard you from your weaker impulses. When you have structure, you have peace. When you know what time you wake up, what you eat, what you're building, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop wasting time on should I or shouldn't I. You just do. That's why the most disciplined people look calm. Because their mind isn't fighting itself all day. Their decisions were made yesterday. Their direction is clear. That's freedom. Freedom from indecision. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from chaos. You have a choice. Keep chasing comfort. And stay stuck, or build rupture and become unstoppable. Discipline is self-respect. Every time you keep your word, you raise your standards. Every time you break your word, you lower them. That's why discipline is self-respect. You show the world and yourself that your word means something. If you say you'll wake up early, and you do, that's a win. If you say you'll train, and you do, that's proof. If you say you'll stop procrastinating, and you actually start, that's progress. But if you lie to yourself enough times, you stop trusting your own voice. That's why you feel lost. That's why you feel stuck. It's not because life is unfair. It's because you stopped believing your own promises. Start small. Keep one promise today. Then another tomorrow. Let discipline rebuild the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. It's not about perfection. It's about alignment. You don't need to do everything right. You just need to do what you said you'd do. You don't need their permission to be consistent. You don't need Roval to stay focused. You need your own commitment. That's the key. The truth about motivation. Stop chasing motivation. It's unreliable. It's emotional. It's temporary. Motivation is the spark. Discipline is the fire. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. Motivation listens to feelings. Discipline listens to decisions. Motivation fades with mood. Discipline rises with purpose. You don't need to be inspired. You need to be consistent. You don't need to wait for the right time. You need to use the time you have. When you rely on motivation, you'll start and stop for the rest of your life. When you rely on discipline, you'll move, no matter what. You have a choice. You can live by emotion or by execution. It's not about motivation. It's about mastery. It's not Abu. T hype. It's about bits. You don't need more motivation. You need more control. Real-world examples. Think about it. The athlete who wins the championship isn't the most talented, it's the most consistent. The entrepreneur who succeeds isn't the smartest, it's the most disciplined. The soldier who survives isn't the biggest, it's the most prepared. They all have one thing in common. They do what must be done, regardless of how they feel. They treat discipline like oxygen. Without it, they can't breathe. That's how you need to see it too. Discipline is not a burden, it's your edge. It's what separates you from the ordinary. It's what gives you freedom from weakness, confusion, and delay. That's why you train daily. That's why you hold yourself to a standard. That's why you stay consistent when everyone else drifts. Because freedom isn't found in comfort. It's built through consistency. Conclusion. Discipline is the foundation of everything you want: peace, purpose, success, strength. Without it, nothing lasts. When you live without rules, you feel lost. When you live with structure, you feel safe. When you live with discipline, you feel free. So stop running from structure. Stop avoiding responsibility. Start building habits that build you. Set your rules. Keep your promises. Earn your own respect. That's the work. That's the training. You don't need more motivation. You need more control. And when you finally understand that discipline isn't punishment, it's power, you'll start to see freedom for what it truly is: obedience to your highest self. You've built the foundation. You've learned to respect structure. Now it's time to face what lives inside your mind, the voice that lies, distorts, and manipulates your thoughts. Chapter 3. Your thoughts are not facts. Your mind is loud. It never stops talking. It comments, judges, criticizes, imagines, compares, worries, and fantasizes. And most people? They believe every word it says. That's the trap. That's the reason why most people never find peace. Your thoughts are not facts. They sound convincing. They sound urgent. They sound true. But the truth? Most of what your mind says is nothing more than noise, echoes of fear, old stories, insecurities, and projections of pain. The thought trap. Your mind lies to you. Fear exaggerates. Anxiety distorts. Ego inflates. When fear takes over, it tells you you're not ready. When anxiety speaks, it whispers something will go wrong. When ego speaks, it shouts you deserve more than them. And if you obey those voices, you start living inside a prison built entirely out of thoughts. You begin to react to shadows, things that don't exist outside your head. You avoid opportunities because of what might happen. You destroy relationships because of what you assume they meant. You stop growing because your thoughts tell you you can't handle it. That's how the mind traps you, not with chains, but with stories. It says, "You're not good enough. You'll fail again. They don't respect you. You're running out of time." Each thought hooks your emotions, and before you realize it, you're obeying commands that were never real to begin with. You're not reacting to life, you're reacting to your imagination of life. That's the lie of the mind. And most POP will never see it. Separate truth from story. The first step to taking back control is simple, but not easy. You must separate truth from story. Here's the truth. A thought is just an electrical signal. A burst of energy in your brain. It appears. It fades. That's all. But you give it life when you believe it. You give it power when you identify with it. You turn it into suffering when you obey it. So here's the discipline. Observe your mind, don't obey it. Say that again in your head right now. Observe your mind, don't obey it. That's the key. Because the moment you start observing, You create distance between you and your thoughts. And that distance, that space, is power. In that space, you can see clearly. You can see the thought, "I'm not good enough," as just that, a sentence. Not the truth. You can see, "They don't like me," as just a projection. Not evidence. You can see, "I'll never make it," as just noise. Not destiny. You are not your thoughts. You are. The awareness behind them. A simple exercise. Let's make it real. Close your eyes and picture this. You're standing beside a river. The current is calm but steady. Each thought that enters your mind, imagine it as a leaf floating by. "I'm tired." There goes one leaf. "I'm failing." Another leaf drifts away. "I should have done better." Let it pass. You don't have to grab the leaves. You don't have to push them away. You just watch. You observe. That's mindfulness in action. That's detachment in practice. And the more you do this, the more you'll notice something extraordinary. Your thoughts lose their grip. They still appear, but they stop controlling you. You stop reacting impulsively. You start responding deliberately. You become the watcher, not the prisoner. The power of labeling. Here's another tool, labeling. Whenever a strong emotion hits, pause for 2 seconds. Then say, out loud if you can, "I'm having the thought that." For example, "I'm having the thought that I'll fail." "I'm having the thought that they don't like me." "I'm having the thought that I'm not enough." Do you feel the difference? You've just created separation. You've reminded your brain, this is a thought, not a fact. And that simple phrase disarms the emotion that was trying to control you. It breaks the illusion that our thoughts are commands. The ego's game. Now, let's talk about the ego, the loudest voice in your head. The ego doesn't want peace. It wants drama. It feeds on comparison, resentment, and control. It says, "I'm right. They're wrong." It says, "I deserve more. They owe me." It says, "I'll be happy when I win." And every time you listen to it, you lose power. Because the ego doesn't live in truth, it lives in story. It keeps you chasing validation instead of purpose. It keeps you reacting instead of creating. It keeps you attached instead of free. So here's the discipline. When you hear that voice saying, "They disrespected me," pause. Ask yourself, is that a fact, or just my ego needing attention? 9 times out of 10, it's the latter. Observe your mind, don't obey it. That's the mantra. That's the armor. Because once you stop obeying the ego, you stop being manipulated by emotion. You stop making impulsive decisions. You start acting from clarity, not chaos. When you master your mind, you master your life. Let's get real. You can't stop thoughts from coming. That's impossible. The goal isn't to silence your mind. The goal is to stop being enslaved by it. You can't control what appears in your head, but you can control what you believe. You can control what you focus on. You can control how you respond. That's what separates the trained mind from the average one. An untrained mind reacts. A trained mind observes, then decides. You have a choice. You always have a choice. The moment you realize that thoughts are not facts, you stop fighting ghosts. You stop wasting energy on illusions. You reclaim your time, your focus, your peace. Because your power is not in what you think. Your power is in what you choose to do despite what you think. Daily mental training. Every day, your mind will try to pull you into old patterns. It'll whisper, "You're falling behind." It'll scream, "You're not ready." It'll say, "You can't handle it." And every day, you must train yourself to pause and separate truth from story. Say it clearly. That's just a thought, not a fact. Observe it. Don't obey it. The more you do this, the stronger you get. The more freedom you build. Because emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about mastering perspective. You can't stop the waves. but you can learn to surf. That's what mental mastery is, not style. NCE, but stability. Not control over thought, but control over reaction. The final lesson. Your mind is powerful, but it's not always honest. It repeats fears you've inherited, wounds you've never healed, and lies you've believed. But you? You are not those lies. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that sees them come and go. So train that awareness. Strengthen that discipline. When your mind speaks, listen, but don't obey. When your thoughts shout, observe, don't react. That's how you win the inner war. That's how you become unshakable. You've learned to separate truth from story. You've seen how much power you lose when you believe every thought that appears. Now it's time to take that clarity and use it, not just to think better, but to breathe better. Because the breath is where calm begins. You mastered your thoughts. Now, let's master your state. Chapter 4. Emotional detachment is power. You've been taught that caring deeply means feeling everything intensely. You've been taught that emotion equals passion, that detachment equals coldness. But that's wrong. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming numb. It's about becoming clear. It's not about disconnecting from life. It's about connecting to truth. Because when emotion rules you, you lose clarity. And when you lose clarity, you lose control. That's the difference between those who break under pressure and those who stay calm while the world burns. The power of distance. Picture a great leader. When chaos hits, when everything starts falling apart, they don't panic. They pause. Their eyes stay steady. Their voice stays calm. They don't rush. They don't react. They respond. That's emotional detachment in action. It's the distance between stimulus and response, the space that gives you choice. That's the key. Because emotion clouds perception. When you're angry, you exaggerate. When you're afraid, you shrink. When you're excited, you overpromise. Every emotion distorts reality in its own way. But detachment? It clears the fog. It gives you distance from the chaos, not to ignore it, but to see it as it is. And that's what power really is, the ability to stay clear when others can't. Think of a monk sitting in meditation while thunder shakes the earth. He doesn't run. He doesn't resist. He observes. He's not suppressing emotion. He's watching it pass through him like clouds through the sky. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Because you don't gain strength by feeling nothing. You gain strength by not being ruled by what you feel. You can be passionate and still poised. You can care deeply and still stay calm. That's emotional precision. That's control. Not suppression. Control versus caring. Let's get this straight. Emotional detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means control. It means you care intelligently. You still love. You still give. You still fight. But you don't lose yourself in the process. You don't let emotions dictate your behavior. You direct them. When someone disrespects you, you don't explode. You breathe. You assess. You decide whether it deserves your energy. When you face failure, you don't crumble. You detach from the sting long enough to learn from it. When you love someone, you don't cling. You detach from the fear of losing them, so your love becomes purer, freer, lighter. That's power. That's emotional leadership. Because caring without control is chaos. And control without caring is emptiness. You need both. Heart and discipline. Emotion and distance. It's not about feeling low. SS. It's about feeling right. Detachment versus disconnection. Let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions. Detachment is not disconnection. You don't detach to escape life. You detach to experience it more truthfully. When you detach from outcomes, you perform better. Why? Because you're focused on the process, not your ego. When you detach from praise, you grow faster. Because you're no longer addicted to validation, you're addicted to progress. When you detach from fear, you become unstoppable. Because you realize, fear only has power when you feed it. That's what detachment gives you, perspective. It's not about walking away from emotion. It's about standing above it, observing it, directing it, mastering it. Detachment isn't disconnecting from life. It's connecting to truth. Say that again. Detachment isn't disconnecting from life. It's connecting to truth. Because the truth doesn't live in your feelings. It lives in you. Our awareness. How to train detachment. So how do you build this kind of calm? How do you develop emotional detachment in a world designed to provoke you? Start small. Train daily. Step 1. Delay your reaction. When emotion hits, don't speak. Don't act. Pause for 3 seconds. Breathe. Ask yourself, what's really happening here? That pause is your power. That's the space where logic replaces impulse. Step 2. Label the emotion. Don't say, I'm angry. Say, I'm noticing anger. That one shift changes everything. It reminds your brain, you are not your emotion. You're the observer, the commander. Step 3. Choose your focus. Emotion is energy. Energy follows focus. When you fixate on what you can't control, you amplify pain. When you focus on what you can control, you reclaim strength. Step 4. Practice detaching from outcomes. Do the work. Give your best. Then let go. You don't control the result. You control you. Our effort. Detach from W. Hats beyond you. That's peace. The emotional economy. Every day, you're spending emotional energy on people, on problems, on opinions that don't matter. And that's why you feel drained. Detachment is how you build emotional wealth. You stop investing in reactions that yield nothing. You stop trading your peace for temporary satisfaction. You stop paying attention to every comment, every judgment, every thought that tries to rent space in your head. You learn to walk away, not from people, but from emotional dependency. Because freedom isn't found in getting what you want. Freedom is found in no longer being controlled by what you want. That's the highest form of discipline. That's emotional sovereignty. The test of detachment. Life will test this lesson. You'll face rejection. You'll face betrayal. You'll face failure. And every time, your emotions will rise like fire. They'll tell you to react, to prove, to defend, to attack, to justify. But you have a choice. You can feed the fire, or you can observe it. You can obey your emotions, or you can master them. The fire can burn you, or forge you. That's the test. Remember, detachment doesn't kill emotion. It refines it. It transforms chaos into clarity, pain into strength, fear into focus. When you detach, you see everything. When you stop being emotionally reactive, you begin to see. You see people's intentions clearly, not through your insecurities, but through observation. You see opportunities others miss because they're too distracted by emotion. You see yourself truthfully, not as your fear or pride defines you, but as you are. That's why the wise are calm. That's why the disciplined look unshakable. Because they've built distance between themselves and their emotions. And in that distance lies their strength. They don't suppress. They escape. Hey, simply see. That's clarity. That's power. That's freedom. Final lesson. Emotional detachment isn't about losing passion. It's about gaining precision. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. Because clarity is power. And power doesn't come from reacting. It comes from choosing. So stop letting emotions make your decisions. Stop giving your peace to every passing feeling. Stop confusing detachment with indifference. Detachment isn't disconnecting from life. It's connecting to truth. That's the discipline. That's the practice. When you can stay calm in chaos, when you can care deeply without losing control, you've reached a level most people never touch. You've learned emotional control, the foundation of an unshakable mind. You've learned how to separate emotion from clarity. Now it's time to strengthen that calm, to build the inner mechanism that keeps you centered no matter what happens. Because before you can master your reactions, you must master your breathing. You've built distance from emotion. Now, let's learn the discipline that anchors your mind. Chapter 5. The Discipline of the Breath. Before you can control your mind, you must control your breath. Because the breath is the bridge between chaos and calm. When you lose control of your breath, you lose control of your thoughts. When your breath is shallow, your mind is noisy. When your breath is steady, your mind is still. That's the rule. That's the discipline. That's the foundation of every calm, unshakable mind you've ever admired. Slow breath. Strong mind. The breath controls the mind. Most people think control starts in the brain. It doesn't. It starts in the lungs. When fear hits, your breathing speeds up. When anger takes over, it shortens. When anxiety spikes, it vanishes. You hold your breath without realizing it. The mind reacts to breath. So if you control your breathing, you control the signal your body sends to your brain. That's why soldiers, athletes, and monks all train breathing before everything else. Because the breath is the remote control for the nervous system. Fast breath equals fight or flight. Slow breath equals focus and control. When the world is spinning out of control, the person who can breathe through it is the one who leads through it. Slow breath. Strong mind. Repeat that until it becomes instinct. Breathing equals thinking. When your breath is chaotic, your thinking is chaotic. When your breath is calm, your thoughts align. The breath and the mind are twins. One mirrors the other. If you want to sharpen your focus, start by slowing your breath. If you want to master emotion, start by mastering rhythm. That's the key. Take any high-stress situation, a difficult conversation, a big presentation, a competition, or an argument. What do you notice? People forget to breathe. They talk too fast. They rush their words. Their body betrays their mind. The lack of oxygen becomes panic. The shallow breath becomes self-doubt. So here's your challenge. In those moments, do the opposite. When pressure rises, breathe slower. When stress tightens your chest, open it. When fear speeds up your heartbeat, slow down your breath. It feels unnatural at first. But that's the training. You are retraining your nervous system. You are teaching your mind that not every signal deserves a reaction. Slow breath. Strong mind. Training through stress. Anyone can stay calm when life is easy. But mastery shows up under stress. That's where breath becomes discipline. Think about a boxer in the ring. Every punch, every move, every block, it's synced with breath. Inhale to see. Exhale to strike. No panic. No wasted motion. Just rhythm. Or a musician performing live, surrounded by noise, lights, chaos. Their breath keeps time. Their breath keeps focus. That's not talent. That's training. You need to train your breath in the same way. Because life will throw punches. Stress will hit. And when it does, your breathing will determine whether you break or adapt. So train for it. How to train your breath. Here's how you build breathing discipline, in 3 steps. Step 1. Daily awareness. Throughout your day, catch yourself. When you're stressed, when you're scrolling, when you're overthinking, stop. Ask, how am I breathing right now? Most of the time, you'll realize you're barely breathing at all. Fix it. Take 1 slow inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4. Exhale through your mouth for 4. That's not just relaxation. That's regulation. You're reprogramming your nervous system for control. Step 2. Stress simulation. Don't wait for chaos to practice calm. Simulate it. When you work out, when you face a deadline, when you're tired, breathe slow. Train yourself to control the breath when your heart is racing. That's real mastery. Anyone can meditate in silence. Few can breathe through conflict. You need both. Step 3. Anchor moments. Create anchors throughout your day, triggers that remind you to breathe. Every time you unlock your phone. Every time you open a door. Every time you get in your car. One deep breath. That's all it takes to reset your nervous system and reclaim your focus. You're not just breathing. You're training. You're sharpening your control one breath at a time, breath under pressure. Let's talk about those moments when control feels impossible. The fight, the argument, the failure. That's when the breath will save you. When someone insults you, pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale slowly. Let the emotion pass before the reaction forms. That's how you stop letting emotion win. That's how you build distance. When you're in a heated meeting, your mind screaming, say something. Do the opposite. Stay silent. Breathe. Let others lose composure while you conserve yours. That's the mark of a disciplined mind. The more pressure rises, the slower your breath should become. That's how you reverse chaos. That's how you stay centered in storms that break other people. Slow breath. Strong mind, the science behind calm. This isn't philosophy, it's biology. Your breath controls your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your cortisol. When you slow your exhale, you trigger the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural calm switch. That's why meditation works. That's why elite performers control breath like a weapon. It's not spiritual. It's strategic. You're hacking your system to perform under stress. You're rewiring your body to obey your mind, not the other way around. Most people live reversed. Their body reacts first. Their mind follows. But not you. You breathe first. You lead first. That's discipline. That's control. Breath as anchor. When you master your breath, you can anchor yourself anywhere, in chaos, in loss, in uncertainty. When your emotions rise, the breath brings you back. When your thoughts spiral, the breath brings you stillness. When fear whispers, the breath silences it. Every calm person you've ever met, every centered leader, every grounded warrior, they all share one habit: controlled breath. They don't let the external world set their internal rhythm. They breathe through life. That's why they're unshakable. That's why they don't break. Because breath is their boundary. When you learn to use the breath as an anchor, nothing outside of you can pull you away from yourself. That's real peace. Apply this in life. Start practicing now. Next time you feel anger, don't react. Inhale. Next time you feel anxiety, don't hide. Exhale. Next time you feel pressure, don't freeze. Breathe through it. You'll realize something powerful. The situation doesn't calm down first, you do. And when you do, everything around you follows. That's leadership. That's mastery. It's not about waiting for peace. It's about creating it, one breath at a time. Slow breath. Strong mind. Final lesson. Your breath is your weapon. Your breath is your foundation. Your breath is the difference between reaction and response. You can't master your emotions if you can't master your breathing. You can't lead others if you can't lead your body. Every discipline begins with this one, the discipline of the breath. So when life speeds up, you slow down. When the world panics, you stay still. When chaos hits, you breathe deeper. That's how you win. Because calm isn't weakness. Calm is control. And control begins with the breath. Slow breath. Strong mind. Say it again until it becomes your instinct. You've learned to control your breath. Now it's time to test that control under real pressure. Because breath without discipline collapses when the stakes are high. Let's see how the trained mind performs when the world closes in. Chapter 6. Pressure reveals the trained mind. Pressure. That's where the truth shows up. People love to say, pressure builds character. But that's not true. Pressure doesn't build character, it reveals it. When life squeezes you, whatever's inside of you comes out. If you've trained your mind, calm will rise. If you haven't, chaos will. It's that simple. When the heat turns up, your preparation speaks louder than your words. When the moment demands control, your habits either protect you or expose you. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. That's the key. When you're under pressure, a deadline, a confrontation, a test, a fight, your nervous system screams for safety. Your body tightens. Your breath shortens. Your mind floods with noise. And that's when most people break. Not because they're weak, but because they're untrained. They've trained for comfort. They've trained for praise. They've trained for ease. But you're here to train for chaos. You have to build the kind of mind that stays stable in the storm, calm in the chaos, still in the fire. Because calm isn't a gift. Calm is a skill. Think about a firefighter. When a building's on fire, he doesn't panic, he executes. He doesn't scream, he breathes. He doesn't think about the fear, he acts through it. That's training. Repetition under stress. Exposure to discomfort until it feels normal. You want to be mentally strong? You have to expose yourself to the things that make others fold. You can't just think discipline. You have to practice it. So start small. Put yourself in discomfort on purpose. Take a cold shower. Sit in silence for 10 minutes. Finish that workout even when you want to quit. Face the conversation you've been avoiding. Do something hard every day. Not to prove something. To train something. Because every rep of discomfort builds resilience. Every moment of stillness under stress builds power. That's the work. And it's not glamorous. The mind is like a muscle. If you only lift comfort, it stays weak. But lift discomfort daily, and it grows unshakable. When pressure hits, it doesn't give you time to think. That's why training matters. You don't get to decide to be calm in the middle of a storm. You either are, or you aren't. When everyone else is panicking, your breath becomes your weapon. Your composure becomes your advantage. Your stillness becomes your power. Pressure isn't the enemy. It's the mirror. It reflects your preparation. And when you start viewing stress that way, everything changes. You stop resenting difficulty. You start respecting it. Every argument, every failure, every setback, they're all training grounds. They all reveal your current level of mastery. So the next time you feel pressure, don't run. Watch. Listen. Observe what shows up inside you. Is it panic? Is it anger? Is it doubt? Good. That's data. Now you know what needs work. You can't fix what you won't face. And pressure forces you to face yourself. High performers don't avoid pressure, they chase it. Because they know it exposes the truth faster than anything else. They know that comfort hides weaknesses, but chaos reveals them. That's why the elite train in adversity. That's why the Navy SEALs drown-proof themselves. That's why monks sit in stillness for hours. That's why athletes practice with heavier loads and faster paces. They train their nervous system to stay calm under chaos. Because when calm becomes your default, nothing can shake you. You don't need to eliminate stress. You need to train your response to it. When you feel overwhelmed, slow down. When you feel anxious, breathe deeper. When you feel pressure, lean in, not out. That's how you rewire your system. Not through motivation. Through repetition. Here's the truth. Pressure doesn't destroy people. Inconsistency does. Because the mind only respects consistency. It trusts what you repeat. If you only practice calm when life is easy, you'll lose it when life gets hard. You can't fake composure. You have to earn it. And earning it means practicing presence when you'd rather escape. It means training your breath when your heart's pounding. It means holding eye contact when fear tells you to look away. Every moment of discipline under stress builds mental armor. Every time you breathe through chaos, you upgrade your system. Calm isn't magic. Calm is conditioning. That's the difference between the average and the trained. You can care deeply and still stay grounded. You can feel intensity without losing control. You can move fast and still stay centered. That's the power of a trained mind. You stop being reactive. You start being deliberate. You stop being pushed by emotion. You start moving by intention. When pressure comes, you no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" You ask, "What is this revealing about me?" That's the question that changes everything. So here's what you do. Every morning, Before the noise, before the chaos, practice your calm. Breathe. Slowly, deeply. In through the nose, out through the mouth. 4 seconds in. 6 seconds out. Control your breath. Control your body. Control your body, and you control your mind. Then, find one moment in your day to step into discomfort. Something that challenges your patience, your discipline, your peace. And when that pressure hits, don't react. Respond. Remind yourself, calm is a skill, not a gift. And every rep counts. Because the more you practice calm under pressure, the less the world can move you. When others break, you breathe. When others rush, you slow down. When others crumble, you stand still. You've trained for this. You've built this. You've earned this. Pressure doesn't define you. Your response does. That's the key. You don't need to escape the fire. You need to become the one who can stand in it without burning. Because when the mind is trained, pressure becomes power. When the mind is calm, storms become silent. And when you reach that level, you stop fearing the world, and the world starts respecting you. You have a choice. Train your calm, or be ruled by chaos. Choose the training. Choose the pressure. Because pressure reveals the trained mind. You've learned to stay calm under pressure. Now, let's take that mastery even deeper. Because emotional control isn't just about survival, it's about decision-making. You've trained your breath and your composure. Now it's time to train your choices. Chapter 7. Stop letting emotions make decisions. You ruin your life one emotional decision at a time. That's the hard truth. Not because you're broken. Not because you're weak. But because you were never trained to separate emotion from execution. Most people live on impulse. They act when they're angry. They quit when they're tired. They speak when they should listen. They chase pleasure when they should stay patient. And then they wonder why their life feels chaotic. Here's the reality. Emotion is a terrible decision maker. It's powerful for art, for empathy, for energy, but it's poison for discipline. When you let your emotions sit in the driver's seat, you crash. Every time. That's why this chapter matters. Because mastery isn't about killing emotion. It's about controlling it. You can feel everything, anger, fear, excitement, but you must act on logic. You must build the muscle of detachment before you make decisions that matter. That's the key. Every mistake you've made probably started the same way. You felt something strong, and you moved too fast. You texted when you were hurt. You spent when you were insecure. You quit when you were frustrated. You said yes when you should have said no. And later, when the emotion faded, you looked back and thought, what was I thinking? That's the point. You weren't thinking. You were reacting. Emotion hijacked your logic. Because when emotion rises, logic falls. That's not weakness, that's biology. Your nervous system floods with adrenaline and cortisol. Your brain shifts from long-term strategy to short-term survival. It's not thinking about your future, it's thinking about your feelings. So if you want to lead your life instead of being dragged by it, you must build a system for thinking clearly under pressure. You have a choice. You can live like a slave to emotion, or a student of logic. Choose logic. Let's talk about business. How many people start projects on hype and quit on boredom? How many investors buy high and sell low, not because of data, but because of fear? How many leaders destroy trust because they speak out of anger instead of clarity? It's all emotion. Uncontrolled. Undisciplined. The same applies to relationships. How many people walk away because they don't feel the spark anymore, when in truth, they just stopped doing the work? That's what emotion does. It blinds you to what's real. Emotion says, I'm uncomfortable, so this must be wrong. Wisdom says, I'm uncomfortable, so this must be growth. Emotion says, I deserve better. Discipline says, I can become better. Emotion reacts. Discipline responds. And that difference, that single breath between reaction and response, is the line between chaos and control. Here's what you need to understand. Decisions made in peace build. Decisions made in chaos destroy. That's the rule. Every emotional decision might feel right in the moment, but it leaves wreckage in the long term. Because emotion is temporary, and you cannot build a permanent life on temporary feelings. So before you send that text, before you quit that job, before you confront that person, pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting to reality or to my emotion about it? Because most of the time, it's not the situation that's dangerous. It's your emotional interpretation of it. When you step back, when you breathe, when you detach, you see things differently. You realize most problems aren't permanent. They're just moments. And moments pass. You don't need to respond immediately. You need to respond intelligently. That's where data comes in. Start treating your life like a system. Like an engineer would treat a machine. Like a general would treat a battlefield. Collect information. Observe patterns. Analyze outcomes. When you remove drama, decisions get simple. Ask, what does the evidence say? What happened last time I did this? What's the likely outcome if I follow this feeling? 9 times out of 10, the data tells you the truth your emotions want to ignore. That's emotional maturity, when you can look at your feelings without obeying them. Because emotion is data, not direction. You can use it to understand yourself, but not to steer your life. That's the key. Think about a surgeon. He might feel pressure, fear, or adrenaline. But when the knife's in his hand, he doesn't move based on feeling. He moves based on training, on systems, on precision. That's how you must move in your own life. When emotion rises, discipline takes over. When chaos hits, logic leads. That's power. That's mastery. You don't need to suppress your feelings. You need to sequence them. Feel first. Process second. Decide third. Most people skip steps. They feel and decide at once, and they destroy progress they spent years building. Stop doing that. You're allowed to feel, deeply. But you're not allowed to let those feelings drive your future. That's how you rise above impulse. That's how you grow. Here's a rule to live by. Never make permanent decisions from temporary emotions. If you're angry, wait. If you're hurt, rest. If you're anxious, breathe. If you're excited, double-check. Don't trust your highs or your lows. Trust your discipline. Because your discipline knows what your emotions will forget. When you build the habit of pausing before reacting, you start to lead yourself. And when you lead yourself, you stop being controlled by the moment. That's what self-mastery looks like, control in motion. So how do you practice this? Start small. The next time you feel that rush, stop. 3 breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Ask yourself, what's the wise move, not the emotional one? Do that once a day. Then twice. Then 10 times. And slowly, you'll rewire your system. You'll notice you speak less, but say more. You'll react slower, but act smarter. You'll stop fighting your emotions and start mastering them. Because mastery isn't about suppression. It's about integration. You don't get rid of the waves, you learn to surf them. You don't eliminate emotion, you elevate above it. When you stop letting emotions make decisions, your life becomes steady, predictable, grounded, peaceful. Not because life got easier, but because you got clearer. You no longer chase highs or fear lows. You live by principles, not moods. You move by vision, not validation. And that's the moment you realize. You don't need their permission. You don't need external control. You have internal control. Decisions made in peace build. Decisions made in chaos destroy. Say it again. Live it again. That's your compass now. So from this moment forward, stop reacting. Start responding. Stop deciding from emotion. Start deciding from clarity. Because that's how you build a life that lasts. Brick by brick. Choice by choice. Not through impulse, but through intention. You've learned how to stop letting emotions make decisions. You've learned how to think through the storm. Now, it's time to talk about what separates the temporary achievers from the unstoppable ones. The next lesson isn't about control, it's about endurance. Chapter 8. Embrace the process, not the outcome. Everybody wants the result. Nobody wants the repetition. Everybody wants the reward. Few can stand the routine. That's why most people quit. They think life is about arriving. It's not. It's about becoming. The illusion of arrival is what keeps most people stuck. You think once you reach the goal, the money, the body, the peace, the recognition, you'll finally feel complete. You won't. Because the goal isn't the destination. It's a mirror. It reveals who you became to reach it. That's the real prize. You have to stop chasing outcomes like they're oxygen. You have to start building systems like they're survival. That's the key. Let's break it down. Every time you say, "When I get there, I'll be happy," you're setting yourself up for pain. Because there doesn't exist. Once you arrive, the finish line moves. The goal shifts. The hunger returns. That's not failure. That's the human condition. You were designed to grow, to move, to stretch. So when you worship outcomes, you create an endless cycle of dissatisfaction. You feel empty because your validation lives in a moving target. You feel burnt out because your effort only feels worth it if it's immediately rewarded. That's not mastery. That's addiction. It's not about chasing the result. It's about becoming the kind of person who shows up, no matter what the result is. You have a choice. You can live for the applause. Or you can live for the work. One fades. The other lasts. Here's a truth most people can't handle. You will spend 99% of your life in the process and maybe 1% at the peak. Think about that. The athlete trains for years for one competition. The writer edits for months for one release. The entrepreneur grinds through failure after failure for one win. The process is where you live. The outcome is just a moment. So why do you spend your whole life waiting for a moment, instead of mastering the space where you actually exist? Fall in love with the process. That's where the power lives. Here's what the process looks like in reality. It's not glamorous. It's not comfortable. It's repetition. It's boredom. It's showing up when nobody's clapping. It's consistency when no one notices. It's you alone, at 6 a.m., doing what needs to be done. It's you, tired, frustrated, doubting yourself, and still moving forward. That's the grind nobody sees. That's the price nobody wants to pay. But that's also the space where greatness is built. Because discipline doesn't show up on stage. It shows up in the silence. It's not about the spotlight. It's about the shadow work. Every rep, every step, every decision. That's how mastery is made. People say, "I just need motivation." No, you need a system. Motivation is a spark. It fades. Systems are structure. They sustain. A system is your anchor. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask if you're inspired. It just demands consistency. That's why systems win. If you train every day, your body transforms, even if you don't feel like it. If you save every month, your wealth compounds, even if progress feels slow. If you speak truth every day, your relationships strengthen, even when it's hard. Systems over feelings. Process over emotion. That's how you build something that lasts. You don't need more motivation. You need more structure. That's the key. Now, let's talk about results. Because results do matter, but not in the way you think. Results are feedback, not fulfillment. They tell you if your system is working. They don't define your worth. The process is the game. The result is the scoreboard. But here's what happens. Most people only show up when the scoreboard looks good. They stop when it doesn't. They forget that losing is part of learning. That failure is just data. That growth hides inside repetition. You can't skip the process because the process is the transformation. You can't cheat time. You can't fast-forward mastery. You want to build peace? Then practice patience. You want to build strength? Then train consistency. You want to build confidence? Then do the hard things when no one's watching. Fall in love with the process. That's where the power lives. Here's the mindset shift. Don't ask, did I win today? Ask, did I show up as who I said I'd be today? Don't say, I have to do this. Say, I get to do this. Because every repetition is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every small act compounds into a powerful identity. It's not about the goal. It's about alignment. When your actions match your values, you become unstoppable. That's self-respect. That's discipline. That's mastery. And when you fall in love with that process, when you start to crave the grind, the silence, the small steps, you become untouchable. Because no one can take the process away from you. They can take the title. They can take the reward. But they can't take the work. That's yours forever. The greats understand this. Athletes don't train for trophies. They train for truth. They train because they love the craft. Because every repetition reveals a deeper part of themselves. Monks don't meditate for enlightenment. They meditate for presence. They know that peace isn't at the end of the path. Peace is the path. Entrepreneurs who endure don't chase the payday. They chase the process of solving, building, creating. That's why they outlast everyone else. Because they're not addicted to the result. They're addicted to the repetition. They don't need external validation. They have internal conviction. That's the difference between the average and the elite. So, here's what you do. Build your day around the process, not the prize. Anchor your schedule to what builds you, not what excites you. Wake up. Move your body. Work your craft. Reflect. Adjust. Repeat. You do that for 30 days, your mindset shifts. You do that for 90 days, your life shifts. You do that for years, your identity transforms. That's how discipline becomes freedom. That's how systems create success. Fall in love with the process. That's where the power lives. The outcome will come. It always does. But by the time it arrives, it won't define you anymore, because you already became someone greater chasing it. That's the paradox of mastery. You get the goal the moment you stop worshiping it. You win the game the moment you start loving the practice. You don't need more speed. You need more patience. You don't need the result. You need rhythm. That's the secret. That's the discipline. That's the peace. You've learned to stop letting emotions make decisions. Now you've learned to fall in love with the process, the daily discipline that separates the unstable from the unshakable. But there's one more layer, one that ties it all together. Because even if you master the process, the world around you is still loud. And if you can't find stillness in the noise, you'll lose control again. So, let's go deeper. Chapter 9. The Power of Stillness in a Noisy World. The world is loud. Every second, something fights for your attention. The news, your phone, other people's opinions, your own fears. And if you don't learn how to be still, you will drown in the noise. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is power. It's control. It's command. It's how you master your mind before the world does it for you. Most people today are addicted to stimulation. They can't sit alone in silence for 5 minutes without reaching for a screen. They mistake movement for progress. They think being busy means being productive. But that's the trap. The busyness is noise. And noise kills clarity. You can't build peace on chaos. You can't make wise decisions in noise. You can't hear your inner direction when the world won't stop screaming at you. Stillness is the new superpower. Not louder. Not faster. Still. Focused. Unshakable. Because the world's game is distraction. And the one who wins in this age is the one who can stay centered when everyone else is scattered. The one who can hear their own mind clearly. The one who can pause before reacting. That's the warrior of the modern world. Let's be clear, stillness is not laziness. Stillness is not doing nothing. It's doing the right thing at the right time with the right energy. It's restraint. It's control. It's strength under pressure. Stillness is what keeps a sniper calm when the world shakes. It's what allows a monk to smile while the storm rages. It's what separates the trained from the chaotic. You have to train for stillness. It doesn't come naturally anymore. You must build it like muscle. Start small. 5 minutes of silence. No phone. No music. No input. Just you and your thoughts. Most people won't last. Their mind will start racing, fidgeting, panicking, because silence exposes them. Stillness forces you to face yourself. And that's why most people run from it. But you're not most people. You're here because you want mastery. And mastery requires quiet. Because when the mind is still, truth rises. When the noise dies down, you finally hear what matters. That's the power of stillness. Stillness sharpens the sword of the mind. Think of your mind as a lake. When it's stormy, the water's muddy, the reflection is distorted, nothing's clear. That's how most people live. Storm after storm. Distraction after distraction. But when the water is still, you can see the bottom. You can see truth. Stillness gives you that reflection. Stillness lets you see yourself. And once you see yourself clearly, no one else can manipulate you again. That's the key. The world manipulates through noise. It sells fear. It sells comparison. It sells urgency. It wants you reactive. Because reactive minds are easy to control. Still minds? Untouchable. They can't be sold lies because they've built the space to question them. They can't be rushed because they understand time. They can't be broken because they don't chase chaos. They create calm. Let's talk about how to build that. Because this is not just theory, it's practice. Step 1. Create sacred silence. Every day, at least once, disconnect. No notifications. No background noise. No scrolling. Just sit. Breathe. Watch your thoughts. At first, your mind will rebel. It'll scream for stimulation. It'll want to run back to the noise. Don't give in. That's your training. Every second you resist that urge, you sharpen your discipline. Step 2. Protect your mental inputs. Stillness isn't only silence. It's selectivity. Who do you listen to? What do you consume? What thoughts are you letting in? Your environment is either feeding your focus or killing it. Stop letting junk content flood your brain. Stop giving attention to meaningless drama. You can't stay still if you constantly fill your mind with noise. Filter your inputs. Protect your peace like a soldier guards the gate. Because every word, every video, every conversation enters your mind like a seed. And what you plant is what you'll grow. Step 3. Slow your reactions. When someone provokes you, when life surprises you, pause. Take one breath before you respond. That single moment of stillness separates the wise from the emotional, the trained from the impulsive. Stillness is not about hiding. It's about responding, not reacting. And that's where your power begins. Listen carefully. You are not missing out when you slow down. You are leveling up. Everyone else is rushing to nowhere. You're refining your focus. You're conserving energy. You're seeing what others can't because you're still enough to notice. Stillness gives birth to insight. It's where intuition whispers. It's where great ideas form. It's where strength regenerates. Most people confuse movement with meaning. They chase 10 goals, start 5 projects, and finish none. Because they never stopped long enough to listen. Stillness is not inaction. Stillness is the pause before precision. The inhale before the strike. The moment before mastery. Stillness sharpens the sword of the mind, and only a sharp mind can cut through the noise of the world. So when you feel overwhelmed, stop. When you feel lost, stop. When you feel angry, stop. Be still. Breathe. Let the dust settle before you act. The world will pressure you to respond instantly. But that's how it wins, by keeping you reactive. You don't owe anyone instant access to your energy. You don't owe anyone your peace. Be deliberate. Move with intent. Think before you step. That's mastery. The man who moves from stillness moves with power. The woman who acts from calm commands the room. They don't need to prove anything. Because power doesn't yell, it whispers. That's what stillness gives you: authority without noise, strength without shouting, presence without performance. In a noisy world, silence becomes magnetic. People notice the calm one in chaos. They follow the centered one when everything's falling apart. Be that person. Be the quiet force that others can't understand but can't ignore. Stillness isn't about escaping life. It's about mastering it. It's about living from the inside out, not the outside in. Remember this. Stillness sharpens the sword of the mind. Stillness is strength. Stillness is power. And when you learn to stay still in chaos, you'll never lose yourself again. You have a choice. Be consumed by the world's noise, or rise above it in silence. You know the answer. You've learned how to stand calm in the storm. Now, let's take that calm and turn it into unshakable confidence. Because stillness means nothing without action. You mastered your silence. Now, it's time to master yourself. Chapter 10. The Final Mastery. Becoming Unshakable. This is it. The final mastery. The point where all your discipline, control, and clarity come together. The goal was never to live without challenge. The goal was to become unshakable in the face of it. You've spent this journey learning to calm your mind, detach from emotions, master your breath, embrace process, and sit in stillness. Now you stand at the summit, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You don't break anymore. You bend. You adapt. You move. But you don't break. Because you've learned the truth. Unshakable isn't born. It's built. Built in silence. Built in discomfort. Built in every moment you refuse to quit when the week would have folded. Let's get one thing straight. Life doesn't stop testing you. It doesn't care about your plans, your goals, or your timing. But it respects strength. It respects composure. It respects the person who refuses to be moved by chaos. Becoming unshakable means this. You no longer react to noise. You no longer depend on validation. You no longer chase control, because you are control. You've trained yourself to hold the line when your emotions scream. You've trained yourself to act from clarity, not panic. And now, every challenge becomes a mirror. Every setback becomes feedback. Every storm becomes training. Because that's how an unshakable mind operates. It doesn't run from pain. It studies it. It doesn't panic under pressure. It performs. It doesn't seek comfort. It seeks command. Listen carefully. Most people never reach this level, not because they can't, but because they won't. They want peace without pressure, confidence without consistency, strength without sacrifice. But you can't have the reward without the resistance. You can't have mastery without the storms that build it. You can't be unshakable if you've never been shaken. That's the paradox. You only find calm by facing chaos. You only find strength by facing struggle. You only find yourself by walking through what you fear. So when life shakes you, good. When people test you, good. When uncertainty hits you, good. That's your gym. That's your battlefield. That's where unshakable is built. Let's talk about what it actually looks like to live unshakable. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about observing it. It's about saying, I see the anger, I see the fear, but I choose discipline over reaction. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about facing it with awareness, without letting it define you. It's not about being invincible. It's about being grounded enough that even when you fall, you rise without losing yourself. Because the unshakable mind knows this. Every emotion is temporary. Every storm passes. But your discipline, that stays. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. You don't need to always feel strong. You need to keep showing up when you don't. That's the difference between those who talk about mastery and those who live it. Unshakable means you've stopped negotiating with your excuses. You've stopped letting emotions make decisions. You've stopped chasing outcomes and started owning your process. It means you can lose and not collapse. You can win and not become arrogant. You can be challenged and not retreat into comfort. It's not about what happens to you. It's about what happens in you. That's the key. Because when your inner world is anchored, no outer storm can move you. That's freedom. That's peace. That's mastery. Let's make this real. How do you build unshakable? First, audit your triggers. What makes you emotional? What steals your focus? What shakes your confidence? Write it down. Face it. Don't hide from it. Awareness breaks the chain. Second, train your response. When emotion hits, pause. When doubt creeps in, breathe. When chaos erupts, observe before you act. Every pause you take builds power. Every calm response rewires your identity. Third, reframe everything as training. Lost the deal? Training. Broke your routine? Training. Got criticized? Training. Life is not against you, it's shaping you. You can't be unshakable if you only practice when things are easy. You have to stay composed when it's inconvenient, when it's unfair, when it's unclear. That's where growth happens. Unshakable isn't a mindset, it's a lifestyle. Every day, you either reinforce your strength or feed your weakness. Every decision builds the wall or breaks it. Every response defines your level. You have a choice. Always. Understand this. You don't need their approval to stay calm. You don't need perfect conditions to stay focused. You don't need certainty to move forward. You've trained too long to go back to reaction. You've built too much to crumble under noise. You've learned too much to forget who you are when things get tough. Unshakable isn't born. It's built through repetition, discipline, and relentless self-control. You built it every time you said no to your emotions. You built it every time you chose process over panic. You built it every time you stayed calm when everyone else broke down. That's the foundation you stand on now. Unshakable. Centered. Free. Now listen, you're going to face tests again. There will be days when your confidence shakes. When your plans collapse. When people betray you. When fear knocks again. But this time, you'll smile. Because you know it's just noise. You know storms don't last. And you know who you've become, the person who doesn't break. Stillness is your weapon. Discipline is your armor. Awareness is your shield. You've mastered yourself. That's the ultimate victory. Because once you master the mind, life follows. The goal was never to control everything. The goal was to control yourself. And now you do. That's the final mastery. That's what it means to become unshakable. So when the world tests you, don't react. Respond. When people doubt you, don't argue. Execute. When fear whispers, don't retreat. Stand still. You are no longer moved by noise. You are no longer trapped by validation. You are no longer addicted to control, because you are control. Remember this. Unshakable isn't born. It's built. Brick by brick. Day by day. Choice by choice. You have the tools. You have the discipline. You have the awareness. Now it's time to live it. No more seeking peace. Be peace. No more chasing strength. Be strength. No more reacting to the world. Let it. That's how you master your mind before it masters you. That's how you become unstoppable. That's how you become unshakable. You've reached the end, but this isn't the end. It's the beginning of your trained life. Now go live it. Because everything you've learned means nothing if you don't become it. You are ready. You are built. You are unshakable. Everything you've just heard comes down to one truth. You are not a slave to your emotions, your habits, or your past. You can train your mind, moment by moment, breath by breath, to obey you. That is the difference between the reactive and the disciplined, the weak and the unstoppable. Life will keep testing you. It will attack your peace, your patience, your focus. But remember, the mind you train today becomes the shield you carry tomorrow. So don't wait for calm. Create it. Don't wish for control. Build it. You are the master now. Act like it.